If you think what just happened between Liv Morgan and Nikki Cross backstage was just another generic WWE confrontation, then you completely missed the most psychologically twisted, deeply personal, and genuinely unsettling moment we've seen in the women's division in years. This wasn't about championships or number one contenderships or who's tougher. This was about two women with dark histories, unresolved trauma, and absolutely nothing left to lose, staring into each other's souls and realizing they're looking in a mirror. And I'm about to break down every single layer of this confrontation that WWE doesn't want you to understand, because it exposes just how dangerous both these women really are. Let me set the stage for those who missed it or didn't catch what was really happening beneath the surface. Liv Morgan was walking through the backstage area, minding her business after her match, and she passed by Nikki Cross, who was sitting alone in a dimly lit corner. Not unusual, Nikki's been doing that unhinged loner thing for a while now. But something about this particular moment was different. Liv stopped. She stared. And instead of walking away like any sane person would when encountering Nikki in full psycho mode, Liv walked directly toward her. The camera work here was absolutely incredible because they let the tension build. No music, no commentary, just the sound of Liv's footsteps echoing through the concrete hallway as she approached this woman who's been spiraling into darkness for months. Nikki slowly lifted her head, and the look in her eyes was pure malice mixed with curiosity, like a predator trying to decide if this new creature in her territory was prey or competition. And then Liv said something that changed everything. "I know what you are because I used to be you." For seconds of dialogue that contain more depth and storytelling than most wrestlers get in an entire year. Because Liv Morgan does know. She's been to that dark place. She's been the overlooked underdog who got pushed aside, betrayed, broken down, and left for dead. She clawed her way back through sheer force of will and a willingness to embrace the parts of herself that society says women should suppress. The aggression, the ruthlessness, the refusal to play nice. Before we go any further, drop a comment right now. Do you think Nikki Cross is more dangerous than Liv Morgan? Or is Liv just better at hiding how unhinged she really is? I need to know where you stand on this. Nikki's response was what took this from a good moment to an all-time classic confrontation. She smiled. Not a normal smile, but that signature Nikki Cross smile that's equal parts childlike innocence and homicidal intent. And she said, "No, you don't know what I am. You only know what you were. I am what you're terrified of becoming again." Let that sink in for a second. Nikki just told Liv that all her growth, all her championship reigns, all her evolution as a performer and character is just a thin veneer covering the chaos that still lives inside her. She essentially said that Liv is one bad day away from snapping completely and becoming the same kind of unhinged, unpredictable force that Nikki represents. And the worst part? She might be right. Think about Liv's journey over the past few years. She went from being the plucky underdog in the Riot Squad to being betrayed and left behind. She rebuilt herself, found success, won the SmackDown Women's Championship, and seemed to be on top of the world. But there's always been this edge to Liv, this barely contained intensity that suggests the darkness is still there, just under control. Her feud with Rhea Ripley showed us glimpses of how far she's willing to go, how manipulative she can be, how she'll use any advantage, including emotional warfare, to win. Now she's face to face with Nikki Cross, who represents the path not taken. Nikki is what happens when you let the darkness completely consume you. When you stop fighting it and start embracing it. When you realize that being unhinged and unpredictable gives you a kind of power that traditional wrestling ability never could. Nikki doesn't care about being champion, she doesn't care about being popular, she doesn't even care about winning or losing in the traditional sense. She just wants chaos because chaos is the only thing that makes her feel alive. The physical confrontation happened next, and it was brutal in a way that women's wrestling often isn't allowed to be. Liv shoved Nikki first, trying to assert dominance, trying to prove she's not afraid. Nikki laughed. Actually laughed in Liv's face like the shove was the funniest thing she'd ever experienced. And then Nikki exploded. She tackled Liv into the wall with reckless abandon. No concern for her own safety, just pure aggression. They fought like two people who genuinely wanted to hurt each other, not like performers executing a choreographed brawl. Security and agents had to separate them, and even then they were both screaming, clawing, trying to get back at each other. But here's what I found most interesting. Their words. Liv was yelling traditional wrestling threats. "I'm going to destroy you. You're nothing," the standard stuff. But Nikki was laughing and yelling things like, "Show me who you really are," and "Stop pretending you're different." She wasn't trying to intimidate Liv. She was trying to provoke her into revealing her true nature. Question for the comments. Should WWE book Liv Morgan versus Nikki Cross as a straight wrestling match? Or should this be a no-holds-barred, falls count anywhere, absolute chaos match? Let me know, because the match stipulation will determine everything about this feud. Let's talk about why this confrontation matters beyond just these two women. The WWE Women's Division has been criticized for years for being too polished, too corporate, too safe. We've gotten incredible athletes and amazing matches, but sometimes it feels like everyone's playing it safe, staying within the boundaries of what's acceptable. Liv and Nikki represent the opposite end of that spectrum. They're willing to get messy, to be uncomfortable, to push boundaries in ways that make both the audience and WWE corporate nervous. Nikki Cross has been doing character work that most wrestlers couldn't pull off. She's managed to be genuinely unsettling without relying on supernatural elements or cheap horror movie tropes. Her brand of crazy feels real, feels earned, feels like something that could actually exist. And that makes her terrifying in a way that scripted characters rarely achieve. When Nikki stares into the camera with those wide eyes and that disturbing smile, you believe that she's capable of absolutely anything. Liv Morgan's evolution has been equally impressive, but in a different way. She's maintained her connection with the audience as someone they can root for, while slowly revealing darker layers to her personality. She's not a clear-cut babyface anymore, and she's not a full heel either. She exists in that morally gray area where the best characters live, where her methods might be questionable but her motivations are understandable. Now you've got these two complex, layered, psychologically interesting characters colliding, and the result is magic. This isn't good girl versus bad girl. This isn't hero versus villain. This is two sides of the same coin fighting for dominance, and the winner gets to prove their philosophy is correct. If Liv wins, it proves you can control the darkness and use it strategically. If Nikki wins, it proves that embracing chaos completely is the ultimate form of power. Here's something nobody else is discussing: the timing of this confrontation. Both women are at career crossroads right now. Liv is trying to reclaim the main event spot after losing her championship. Nikki has been floundering in the mid-card despite being one of the most talented performers on the roster. This confrontation could be what elevates both of them back into major storylines, or it could be another case of WWE fumbling interesting character work in favor of whatever celebrity guest they're promoting that week. WWE has a terrible track record with these kinds of intense personal feuds in the women's division. They start hot, build momentum, and then get dropped or rushed to a conclusion because creative loses interest or needs the slot for something else. Remember Bayley and Sasha's friendship imploding? That should have been a year-long blood feud, but instead got a few matches and then both women moved on. Remember Becky and Charlotte's real-life tension bleeding into storylines? WWE couldn't figure out how to handle it, so they just kept changing directions. This Liv versus Nikki situation has the potential to be special, but only if WWE commits to it. Only if they let these women tell their story over months, not weeks. Only if they allow the darkness and psychological intensity that made this backstage confrontation so compelling to carry through into their actual feud. Drop in the comments. How long should the Liv Morgan versus Nikki Cross feud last? Should this be a quick 3-week bill? The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. This confrontation is genuinely great, legitimately compelling character work that would be praised even if the division was stacked with amazing storylines. But it's also getting extra attention because it stands out so dramatically from the usual women's division content. When most of your storylines are, these two women don't like each other so they're going to have a match, anything with actual depth and psychology is going to feel revolutionary. And that's part of what makes this so frustrating as a fan. We shouldn't be shocked when WWE delivers good storytelling with their women's roster. These are some of the most talented performers in the world. They're capable of delivering the same level of complex, engaging storylines as the men, but they're rarely given the opportunity or the time to do so. This Liv and Nikki confrontation proves what's possible when you let talented women be more than just smiling baby faces or mean heels. Let's also talk about the specific psychology at play here because it's fascinating. Liv's approach to Nikki wasn't aggression or fear, it was recognition. She saw herself in Nikki, and that recognition scared her more than any threat could. Because if Nikki is what happens when you let the darkness win, then Liv is constantly fighting to prove she's different, that she's in control, that she won't become that. But the more she fights against it, the more she reveals that the darkness is still there. Nikki, on the other hand, isn't fighting anything. She's embraced what she is completely. There's a freedom in that, a kind of power that comes from accepting your worst impulses instead of suppressing them. She's not conflicted. She's not struggling with moral questions. She's just existing in her truth. And that makes her incredibly dangerous because there are no limits, no lines she won't cross, no depths she won't sink to. The philosophical question at the heart of this confrontation is, which approach is stronger? Controlled darkness or unleashed chaos? Liv represents the idea that you can harness your demons and use them strategically. Nikki represents the idea that only by completely surrendering to chaos can you reach your full potential. Both philosophies have merit, and the matches between them will essentially be debates played out through violence. Here's a prediction that's going to upset some people, but I'm calling it now. This feud ends with Liv Morgan snapping and becoming just as unhinged as Nikki Cross, if not worse. Comment below if you think I'm right or completely off base, because this is the natural conclusion to the story they're telling. Think about it. Nikki's entire goal seems to be proving that Liv is just like her underneath the surface. Every encounter, every mind game, every psychological assault will be designed to chip away at Liv's control until she finally breaks. And when she does break, when she finally gives in and unleashes that darkness completely, Nikki will have won even if she loses every match. Because she'll have proven her point. You can't escape what you really are. That's the kind of long-term storytelling that WWE rarely commits to, but it's what this feud demands. Not a simple face versus heel dynamic, but a genuine exploration of identity, control, and the thin line between sanity and madness. These are the stories that create legendary feuds, the ones fans remember and discuss for years. The backstage setting of this confrontation was perfect because it felt real. No elaborate set, no dramatic lighting beyond what naturally exists in those corridors. No music swelling in the background. Just two women, a camera, and the rawest emotions. That's when wrestling is at its best. When the artificial elements fade away and you're left with pure human drama. When you forget these are performers and start believing they're real people. Final question for you all. If this feud culminates in a match at a major PLE like WrestleMania, should Liv win to prove she's in control? Or should Nikki win to prove that chaos always triumphs? Think carefully because both outcomes tell very different stories about who these women are. Here's what needs to happen next. WWE needs to let this breathe. No quick resolution, no random matches thrown together with no build. Let the tension escalate naturally over weeks and months. Have near encounters that don't lead to fights because the tension is more powerful than the release. Have Nikki playing mind games, showing up in unexpected places, saying things that get under Liv's skin. Have Liv trying to maintain composure but showing cracks, small moments where the darkness peeks through. Build to their first actual match like it's the biggest deal in the world because it should be. When they finally face each other in the ring, it should feel like an event, like something that matters beyond just the result. The match itself should be chaotic, intense, uncomfortable to watch in the best way. They should fight like people who genuinely want to hurt each other, who have something to prove beyond just winning. And after that first match, regardless of who wins, the story should continue. Because confrontations like the one we saw backstage aren't resolved in one night. They're the beginning of something bigger, something that transforms both women by the time it's over. That's the potential here if WWE doesn't waste it. This backstage confrontation between Liv Morgan and Nikki Cross was a gift to wrestling fans who crave substance over style, who want psychological depth.